I hope you've got lots of questions to ask Marc. It's very exciting to have him here today. Start with that day on May the 17th, the FA Cup final. Who watched the FA Cup final here? Pretty much everyone. Great. And so Marc, tell us about the day itself and how you felt sort of during it and afterwards.
Hi guys. It was an unbelievable experience, to be honest. Something that, in a way, like you just said, for most Palace fans, didn't know if it was going to happen or not. But for us personally in the dressing room, we all had that belief that it was going to happen. And I think you could see the togetherness of the team, throughout the competition or throughout the whole season, of how much we believed in one another and in our own, ability to go out and perform. Of course, on the day, there was all sorts that was going on. Dean saving penalties and City missing a lot of chances and many things. Adam getting concussed, but in the end, what an amazing experience. I'm really grateful.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, what actually happened with your eye injury?
Adam actually kicked the ball at my eye.
Right.
I think he was trying to score. I don't know if the ball was going in or not. Come off, couldn't see at all, so I carried on playing for I think about 10 minutes, and I couldn't see a thing for 10 minutes. And then only regained my vision 48 hours later. And then funny enough, Adam got concussed as well. So I don't know, maybe karma or something.
Some sort of divine retribution.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And we're here to talk mainly about leadership, but it's great to get some anecdotes as well about what really happened.
I can't actually remember what he said, but I think Hendo said you got your 10 minutes, your 10 minutes. I think he wanted to say a bit more to him, but after winning, you want to be humble. That's what the manager tells us all the time. But yeah, I think in those moments it's hard for Man City and Pep. You just lost the final, so emotions are flying high. So in a way, I kind of understand both sides.
Anyway, let's I guess turn the clock back a bit, Marc. I think everyone here is going to be fascinated to hear a bit about your background and kind of how you've kind of got to where you are, and perhaps a bit of insight into the sorts of personal qualities that have helped you get this far. And of course, you've got a long way to go yet, but tell us a bit about your background.
Yes, so I was born in the Ivory Coast, came here at the age of 1, grew up pretty much in South London around Lewisham, went to Marvel's Lane Primary School, and my parents actually didn't want me to play football at all. So it was something that, just to get out of the house, just to have some fun, play with friends and stuff like that. Always education first. And, I think that was really important for me because it instilled a lot of discipline in me, making sure, priorities were in place first and then football later. But, as things got better and, I think they saw that I had a bit more potential, that, they allowed me to, pursue what I wanted to do. And it's helped me along the way, to be fair. I give a lot of credit to my parents for installing a lot of, good qualities in me that have helped me along this way. So
I think it'd be interesting to talk a bit about some of those qualities, values, and how that plays into your role as captain as well in the club. Yeah,
I guess my faith is a massive thing for me. I think that's really and always a constant in my life, always helped me along the way. And I'd say I just really love caring about people. I'm really interested in other people's stories and, where other people have come from and, what makes them them. So for me as a captain, I think that's, one of the most important things for me in terms of, values and just having that as the pinnacle for me moving forward. And
you mentioned just now that at first your parents weren't keen on you being a footballer. When did that change? I've met your dad a few times and he seems fine with it now.
Yeah, he's happy now.
So when was that change?
I think it was... So I played for Cray Wanderers Sunday League team, and my coach was actually a Chelsea scout at the time. And at the age of 8 years old, ended up going to Chelsea, all the way right through the academy. But I think it was up until maybe 15, 16 when you sign your first pro contracts that it was like, okay, this is a real thing. This is quite serious. You could have a career in this. I think at that point, that's when the family knew that, okay, this is something that Marc wants to do, and we believe that he can go from there. But up until that point, it was all about education, all about making sure I got my grades, making sure I did the things that would help me in life.
Yeah, and the education is still important to you now, isn't it? I mean, it's people perhaps don't see behind the scenes, but there's an awful lot of work that goes on, lots of support you get. So you have to understand stuff around nutrition, about your physical performance, how to recover from injuries. Obviously, the analysis, the tactical stuff. Without education, it'd be pretty tricky to, I guess, take in all that information.
Yeah, absolutely. All education is really just learning about different things, getting a better understanding of different things. Education never really stops, to be honest.
So I guess paths going forward are not always smooth. Have there been times in that process through Cray Wanderers to Chelsea and onwards where things have been more difficult for you? You've had to get through some difficult moments?
I'd say my whole experience growing up through the academy was quite difficult, I guess. You know, seeing certain players that you grew up with play up a year, which is always a good thing, you know, playing for the team above and going on to do more things, while, you know, sometimes I'd say all the time stay in that year for another year. So you feel like you get held back a little bit because of your lack of progress and lack of achievements. But again, that comes down to my parents and them helping me, you know, understand the value of hard work and, you know, just carrying on the process. Another good friend of mine, Conor Gallagher, who's at Atletico right now. It's quite similar, I guess, in our journeys as well. How we grew up, always playing, you know, not a year below, but within that year, and, you know, seeing your friends move forward, it's tough sometimes. And, you know, you want to move forward, you want to progress in life. But, you know, thankfully we stuck at it and, you know, you get your rewards at the end.
And a bit of patience then involved.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I remember looking at the shirt that's behind you, the one with the diagonal stripes. That was the year that, of course, Conor played for Palace as well, wasn't it? And it's interesting when you're from an England perspective. You often see players are, you know, coming up maybe one ahead of the other. Then next year it's the other way round. So you have to be, I guess, patient and persistent, and that's something you've been able to do.
Yeah, you sometimes doubt your journey as well. Like you say, you can doubt yourself, which is absolutely normal to doubt yourself. But in the end, coming back to your goal or your dream and realizing, you know, this is the most important thing. I'm just going to stick at it and then see where it gets me.
Yeah. And you mentioned your family and your faith. When you think about other people that inspire you, are there other people in the world, other footballers or in the wider world who you take inspiration from?
Yeah, so my favourite player growing up was Didier Drogba.
Ivory Coast.
Ivory Coast, yeah, not just a footballer, but someone that helped stop the civil war back home in Ivory Coast. So, you know, he's done massive things, continues to do massive things in life as well as football. Kobe, another one, that mentality of just always, you know, striving for more. So yeah, many people, you know, inspire me. And then just everyone every single day. You'd be surprised, the average person next to you, what they're going through and, you know, how they're dealing with things in a positive way and how that inspires you. So for me, you know, every single person.
Yeah. And I was thinking about, you mentioned just now how the team, I guess, is very strong together, very much together. But that doesn't happen overnight, does it? And obviously one of the things we're trying to do now with England is build a coherent culture when you don't see each other so often. At Palace, as a club team, you have the advantage of being there pretty much all the time. So the manager's got a bit more time to work with you. But it's really struck me over the course of the last year how much that seems to have developed. So I get to the odd away game. I went to Everton in September. I think you scored. It's 1-0 at half time. Second half didn't go particularly well. Then 3 months later, I'm at Brighton and really good performance. I think it could have been 4-0 at one point. Ended up 3-1, I think. But signs of real improvement. But then another level again with the semi-final and the final. So what's going on behind the scenes to help the team to function so much better over that period of time? It's the same people. Broadly.
Yeah. Do you know what? When I first got there, there was a core group of senior players. So MacArthur, Wilf, Zaha, Milivojevic, Benteke, Czech Kouyaté. So many of these guys that help build the culture. So when you come in there as a young player, you all automatically look to those guys, you know, as like a beacon of hope and you know, just to lead the way and help you understand everything a little bit more. So when you get there, they just make things easier. And then when they leave, they almost pass that on to, you know, the players that are there, and you have to take a bit more responsibility and understand that now your role has changed, and, you know, it's really important to carry on what they left behind. And I think, you know, we've got such a good group of people first, not just the footballers, but I mean the staff, the club, just a good group of people that, you know, want to help and just want to be there for one another. And I think that's, you know, similar to the community of just South London in general. People just want to help, people just want to be there for each other. And so, you know, when you talk about going through those tough moments, it's normal. Do you know what I mean? It's normal. Yeah, everyone's gone through tough moments. It's normal. It's not something that is, you know, this new experience. You know, it's normal. So then when you're going through it together, it helps that bit more. You build connections. You get to know people for who they truly are and who they are in that moment. You know, do you have people that are maybe, you know, slightly weaker than other people? That's fine. As long as you have the person next to you picking that person up and telling them that it's okay, we go again. So, you know, building those connections on the pitch, off the pitch is so important. And then when you see the results getting better, it's no coincidence. It's just people going through the same struggles, but sticking by each other. And I think that's the most important.
Yeah. And as captain, presumably you've got a role in setting examples and leading by, you know, your behaviours and values.
It's not just me though. Do you know what I mean? I'm the one that wears the armband, but there's so many leaders in the dressing room, so many. You got Max, you got Ebbs, you got Will, obviously Ward, Joe Ward, who's just left the football club. Like so many leaders, and everyone leads in their own ways. For example, Will Hughes will shout and scream at every single person, right? And that's good. As long as he does that, he's being himself, and that's really good. Whereas I don't really like to shout and scream. Yeah, you know? I know. I'm more put my arm around you, talk to you. Ebbs will lead, but Ebbs will lead by, you know, nutmegging a few people, scoring a goal. Do you know what I mean? So he's leading in his own way, and I think that's the most important. That just be yourself. Don't feel like you have to be someone else when it's not you. I think that's the most important.
Yeah, I think that point. I mean, I'm not criticising Will Hughes at all. I think it's important to sometimes to a bit of shouting, but I guess there's a traditional idea of leadership that's quite sort of male, macho, which involves sort of a lot of shouting and screaming in football. And you seem to me to be very different to that. Very calm, slightly less calm after the FA Cup win, but it's the most excited I think I've ever seen you.
Yeah, that's the most excited I've ever been, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, I think it's, especially in the world of football, and even in life and in anything, there's this perception that you have to be this certain type of way, especially in leadership. Like you say, you have to be the guy that is, or the person that is, you know, chest out and shouting and you know, and that has those aspects, those characteristics are good in certain moments, but not every single moment. And the most important thing is just be yourself, because that's the only way that people can respond to you. If you're not acting like Paul, I'm going to notice. Do you know what I mean? You're acting a bit different. I don't know if I believe you. Do you know what I mean? So most important is to be yourself. And find ways to develop your leadership skills within yourself, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I had a very long career before I did this last 2 years with the Football Association. I had a very long career in business, working as a consultant with some very large organisations, the government, lots of big banks, etc. And in my company, a very big company, we would explore sort of what leadership means. And one of the business school professors who came in to talk to us many years ago really left that impression with me, exactly what you just said, Mark, around authenticity, about everyone's got to find their own way. It's not about finding one specific version of leadership, it's about your own. And his basic idea was you should be yourself more with skill, is what he said. So you should kind of almost practice being yourself more and making sure that the way that your personal style comes across, you know, is true to yourself, but also makes a difference to other people. And I guess that's what you're saying, that it doesn't matter how you do it, it's the effect on the rest of the team that matters most. I want to give everyone the chance to ask some questions. But before I do that, just wanted to touch on England, and particularly, I guess, your transition into the England team, what it was like. Because I think if I remember correctly, I think you made your debut after the World Cup, March 2023 against Switzerland, was it? I think it was Switzerland and Ivory Coast. You played, I think, 2 games.
2021.
2020, yeah.
2021, I think.
Oh, so
2022.
2022, yeah, 3 years ago, yeah. And then obviously broke into as a regular to the team actually in the Euros when Harry Maguire didn't go. What was it like coming into the squad for the first time and then gradually progressing to become a regular in Gareth's team?
Yeah, I'd say it was a bit scary at first. I mean, it's a massive honour to be called up for your country and to play for England, but you're coming into a change room where, like you say, you got Harry Kane, Phil Foden, like all these top players, you guys know. So it's a bit scary. Now you have to try and, in a way, show them what you can do, even though you've already got the call up in the first place. So there's all these mind games, happening already. And, I think, like I said, the most important for me was to be myself, not try and be anyone out, be any other person, but try and be myself. And similar to my whole career and my whole life, it was tough at the beginning, So I ended up getting into the team, getting called up. And then Qatar World Cup comes around. In that period before then, I thought I'd done quite well. I thought I'd earned myself a spot in the World Cup. And then you get a call from Gareth Southgate saying, sorry, you didn't make the team. In that moment, you can either go one or two ways. You can go, that's it, forget about it. Or you go, okay, thank you very much. I'm going to show you that, I can come back and do even better. So that whole period was just me, I guess, finding myself, experiencing different challenges, but all within myself.
Yeah. And of course, not just you, there was Adam and Ebbs and Dino were in the England squad. You had two players in the Colombia squad from Palace, Jean-Philippe Mateta playing for the French Olympic team. So lots of you had big summers.
Big summers, yeah. We all lost.
We all lost.
We all lost in the final.
But you all got to the final as well.
Yeah, it was good. But again, we used those experiences to help us.
It's a process, isn't it?
Process to help us in this final. This time. So
And that gave me a lot of optimism around the final, that people had been there before, experienced what it was like, learnt from the experience, and would be able to apply that on the day, particularly with a very good manager.
Exactly.
So So the last thing, just on the Euros, about authenticity, it's very important that Marc is a very believable guy, very trustworthy. You know where I'm going with this, don't you?
I don't actually.
No? Okay. No. I was thinking about the Wolf game, the Traitors game.
Okay.
People watch Traitors on TV. So we ran a game. Our press officer ran a game with Traitors and the Faithful. About 30 odd of us were divided up, players and staff. And it came down to a final that Marc was in, and pretty much everyone believed that Marc was faithful. And of course, it turned out that he was the traitor. So he won that game.
When you're, like you say, a believable person, I just feel like it's easier to get people on side. But no one would have thought I would have lied. So
even my wife was on the phone saying, "It's Marc. It will be Marc." Yeah. I said, "No, it can't be. It can't be." But that's how trustworthy he is. Right, who'd like to ask Marc a question?
The best ways to get through to your teammates and you would want them to perform or act in a certain way?
Good question. It depends on your teammates. For example, I'd never talk to Ebbs how I would talk to JP. Do you know what I mean? So if I want to get the best out of both of them, I need to talk to them in completely different ways because they're two different people, two different players. For example, I'd never scream and shout at Ebbs, right? Ebbs isn't going to respond from that. You need to go, you can challenge Ebbs, because Ebbs, I could challenge Ebbs. I think that guy thinks he's better than you. Do you know what I mean? Little mind games, you'd be like, what? Do you know what I mean? He's got that mentality about himself, then he'll show himself. JP, you can scream and shout at JP. Do you know what I mean? Because he's crazy, by the way. So you can scream and shout. So he's not going to take it, he doesn't take it, too seriously. He just goes, okay, yeah, and gives him a bit of energy. So I think when you're leading in that way, it just depends on who you're talking to and who that person is to get the best out of them.
Just to follow up on that point, so you're quite calm on the pitch. How do you make sure, and like you said, you don't really like to shout, so how do you make sure your voice is heard as captain?
Just project it a bit. If I just talk like this, then it's a bit hard for everyone to... If I start talking like this, I'm not necessarily shouting, but I'm projecting my voice a bit more. On a match day, it is hard, because depending on where you are, what stadium, it is loud, but, you can still project and be clear and talk in a way everyone can hear you on the pitch.
Yeah.
Can you think of a time where your motivation has impacted your leadership?
Motivation?
Yeah.
Good question. I'd say the Euros, probably. I think after losing after losing the final. It definitely made me think about how I could have, helped the team in a different way. Not necessarily, on the pitch and playing and showing my ability, but more from a leadership standpoint. And so that helped me, just rethink certain things so that when I went back to club, I could lead in a different way. Not necessarily, I'd say last season, for me personally, wasn't a season where I was able to show my skills a lot, but it was more things that people wouldn't necessarily see and allow people to shine and help them just through, rethinking the way I could lead people.
What skills do you think you've learned or developed from playing that leadership role in the team?
Good question. I'd say being very cautious about my actions. Sometimes you don't realize as a leader, everything you do, everyone's looking at. It's always scrutinized, if that makes sense. So for example, if I turn up late one day, I might not think anything of it, but someone in the team has seen the captain turn up late, and that almost doesn't mean they're going to turn up late, but it almost thinks, oh, if he can get away with that, that means I can get away with that, if that makes sense. So just being very cautious, very particular about how I am every single day, because anything I do can impact any other person around me.
I think that's a really good question, because you can talk about leadership and what you say, but it's actually what you do, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And people are watching you, and the more high profile you are, people are watching you every minute of the day. And that's something that I only realised as I sort of went up in my career, that people were sort of, just on the lookout and taking cues from how you act. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of permitting, as a leader, if you behave badly in some way, you're permitting other people to do the same. So a lot of extra pressure. Mm-hmm. And
what kind of qualities do you think separated you from other players to get where you are today?
Not taking no for an answer. I think it's very easy in society and everything that you do. People take no for an answer and go, okay, you said no, I just didn't accept it. I knew I wanted to do something, and that was play football. And even now I'm like, I have to get better. I know I can get better. But doing it in the right way and just not taking no for an answer. I just, for me, that doesn't exist in my head, if that makes sense. And that's allowed me to get as far as I am today.
Yeah, it's always surprised me in my career. I was a partner in one of the very big global consulting firms, that very few people ever actually, I can think of one or two actually ever, sort of wrote to me and said, can I have a job? Or can I come? And a handful would say, can I come and see you for a few minutes? And you're out there on LinkedIn, people can contact you. Some people do, some people don't. But yeah, there's an element, if you don't ask, you don't get. And certainly you might not get a yes the first time. So sometimes just ask again, yeah.
What are like the small things that brings a team together on and off the pitch?
A lot of banter. Just making fun of each other, not taking anything too seriously. We have got really good characters in the team, like Mateta I was talking about. Mateta, just not a serious person, and he doesn't take anything seriously. I don't know if you guys seen him, but he's always screaming and shouting. Grace knows he's just not a serious character. So having someone like that, or other people joking and laughing with each other, it definitely brings everyone together.
What do you do before a game at half time to mentally prepare yourself for going out there and just doing what you do? Music helps, either my own or the team's music. Definitely gets you in a good frame of mind. Everyone loves music, so and it can definitely change your mood in different ways. So depending on what I put in my ears, I might put on something that might get me hyped up for a certain game. But usually I try to want to chill music, R&B or some gospel or something like that.
And do you approach Palace and England games the same way?
No.
No?
It's not the same.
No.
I'd say at England I play my music more.
Right.
Not because the music at England's bad. But I don't know, I just don't see it as the same. I have to put myself in a different mind frame, just because international games and domestic games are just not the same. So putting yourself in a different place mentally, for me, helps me a lot more just to stay focused.
Interesting. So,
when you was younger, would you say that you was a leader as well? Would you think that's a quality that you had as
I'd say as I got older, I was aware that I was a leader. So I was told more from other people. I wasn't necessarily aware because I was just doing my own thing. Not really worried about anything else. But, as you get older, people tell you, people see you as a leader. So you need to act a certain way. So, as I got older, I definitely developed those skills as well, just because I was more conscious of the fact that people told me that I had an impact on other people. And then when I took a step back, for example, the question that you asked me about, the little things that impact other people, you see those things when you take a step back and you're like, oh, actually, these things do impact people and I have to be very conscious of certain things. So yeah, I definitely developed those skills as I got older.
And you were made captain of teams previously?
Yeah, growing up.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something that I wasn't conscious of it. I wasn't conscious of the fact that I could influence and have an impact on other people's, lives or games in that way. But as you get older, like I said, you take a step back and realize, actually, maybe this little thing does impact that person, or maybe the way I encourage this person impacts him, or how I talk to this person impacts him. So, I have to be very conscious.
What's your biggest setback and how do you overcome it?
It's like an interview question.
It's a good question, actually.
It's a good one, yeah.
So my knee injury. So I got a knee injury in February against Brighton, that year of the Euros.
Yeah.
And people don't know about this, but to me, it was like, I'm done. Like honestly, at first, I couldn't believe it. First, I'm thinking, right, so I'm 22, 23, and I've just got a knee injury. Like, what? Never in my life did I think I'd get a knee injury. Never in my life did I think I'd have surgery on my knee. So already getting loads of thoughts in your head. They're telling me you're going to be back towards the end of the season. So I'm going to miss pretty much the whole second half of the season. I'm not going to play much. How do I get in the England team now? How do I help my team out? Because of, in a relegation battle. So all these thoughts are going through my head, so that was definitely tough. But, thankfully, good people at Palace, family, and then, you start focusing again on what the goal is and what the most important thing is, and that really helped me. And then, to go from that and then what happened at the Euros was unbelievable.
I'd forgotten about that, and of course, ironically, the point when you were, I'm not trying to draw any cause and effect here, but at the point you were injured, the team was in a relegation battle, but when you came back, things had improved enormously, hadn't they?
They were fine, yeah.
And you couldn't get in the team, did you?
Honestly, couldn't get in the team.
They actually got you fit, and then you couldn't play. I remember the last game of the season,
I didn't even play in my position. That's how bad it was,
yeah. So you hadn't even played, when you played for England in the Euros, you hadn't really played a competitive game in your normal position.
I played one game in midfield,
Yeah, one game in midfield, So that was a real challenge. And I remember the club, because I worked with the physios at England, Palace did a great job to make sure you were ready for the Euros rather than just say, oh, we'll get him fit for next season. They did a great job in preparing Marc for that. But these sort of mechanical procedures they do on your knees and stuff. I saw Bakayo's scar on the back of his hamstrings about this long, and it's not great.
As a captain, man, on the day of the final, how do you keep your team calm?
So first and foremost, that belief, that sense of belonging. And I know it's hard, not just in football, but in anything. I think loads of people go through imposter syndrome. I've been through it. You tell yourself, I'm not meant to be here, I'm not supposed to be here, but that's a lie. Those are mental battles that you're facing with yourself. If you've done the work to get to where you are, then definitely you belong it, and then it's just about just changing that. And I think, not just me, but every single person, in the team, the manager played a massive part in that, the staff, everyone, we just had that belief. It was like, no, we're meant to be here, we're supposed to be here, and you feel that sense of belonging. And so, throughout the week, I think the most important was the conversations that we had was don't do anything differently. I'd say, so when we was at the Euros, I think the day before the final, so when we get our new boots for the final, the kit man comes, okay, I'm going to write on your boots, Spain versus England, and then put the date, for players, that's really exciting, you get the date and potentially you get flag on the boot. And that's really, I wouldn't have, I would never really do that, but I did that for that day. And then having conversations with Oliver Glasner and the manager, And he goes, from my experience, and I'm sure from your experience, you wouldn't do anything different that you haven't done the whole season. You know, if we've got to this point in life, or, you know, there's no point changing anything just because it's a final. So, you know, having conversation with the team, I think that made everyone feel quite calm. You know, we don't have to do anything different. And then in the final, we didn't do anything different, you know, and ended up winning.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think as a long-time Palace supporter, I know a lot of people who never think Palace is going to win. I'm probably a bit different to that, but I've been to lots of big games, and that process is really important. I think if the club had never been to a game before, the supporters wouldn't have been the way they were, and that was all part of it. I think the sports played a big part.
I was just going to ask, on the cup final day, FA Cup, how much do you think the fans impacted you?
Massively, to be honest. So I've got social media, but I don't really use it like that, to be honest. But I know from every single person, social media, fans, or, you know, the amount of support that we got. But not just the day of the final, but throughout the whole season, it's just constant. It's the same. Whether we win or lose, it's just the same. So, you know, going into that final, it's going to be even more. I think the tifos behind the goals, and, you know, compared to some of the other teams, just so much better. And you go into the stadium, you're like, no, these fans, they'll love us regardless of what happens. You know, they're happy, you know, that we got to the final, and for us that was enough. And it's like the fact that we got here and they're celebrating already. It's like, now we have to win it. We have to do everything possible to win it. So yeah, they definitely played a massive part, for sure.
Yeah, and one of the things I really appreciate about the club as it is now, lots of Premier League clubs have become global brands. People support them all over the world, but that's great. And I'd love Palace to be supported all over the world too. But the fact that, you know, we've got a South London lad lifting the FA Cup as captain, another one scoring the winning goal, even the chairman is from the area as well. Yeah, that means a lot to people. And I think we've got probably 7 players who played for England in that squad, including Ben Chilwell and
Ben.
Tyrek Mitchell, Eddie as well. You know, so big contributors to the England team too, which is, you know, a great source of pride for the club and for the area.
How do you overcome the negative feelings after losing the game?
It's a very, very good question. I'd say so I'm someone that's very hard on myself. You know, I almost expect too much sometimes. The biggest advice as people have always told me is, you know, don't be too hard on yourself. I tell myself this all the time as well, but it's hard. So I went through, I'd say, a massive period in my career where I just couldn't handle defeat and loss and not playing well, and, you know, all these thoughts going through your head. But then you strip it back, right? Whatever happened, football, you just have to put things into perspective. Like, what is truly important? Do you know what I mean? So for me, my family's what's truly important. I've got my 3 younger sisters, mum, dad, my friends. That's what's truly important. You know, is me being in this state of mind helping them? Is it really helping myself? You know, I think it's important asking yourself these questions, you know, and just putting things into perspective. I think that's the most important. Because then at the end of the day, I've got another game I need to play maybe 3 or 4 days later. If I'm still feeling like this, it's not really going to help me for that game. And so I think understanding that life moves on, whether you like it or not. The sun comes up, the sun goes down, you know, life moves on. So I think if you see it like that, and that's how I have developed it over time, it definitely helps.
And that's quite a skill, isn't it? There's quite a contradiction between having to perform on a day and it being so important to you on the day, but not then dwelling on it all the time in a negative way afterwards.
Yeah, I think in football, you just can't.
No.
You have to go to work the next day. You're literally at work, so you have to see people's faces. If you're not in a great mood, they're not going to be in a great mood. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you've got a game 2 days later. If you're still thinking about that, it's not really going to help you focus solely on what's important at this moment in time. So, you know, I know a lot of people have like a 24-hour rule. You know, you can sulk for 24 hours and then after, you know, get rid of it. But as soon as you can get it out of your system as quick as possible, the better.
Yeah, I was trying to work out after the Euro final how long I needed to look miserable for in order to not be inappropriate.
So you've spoken about dealing with that disappointment off the pitch, but on the pitch, when either you've made a mistake or your team members have made a mistake, how do you keep them as the leader motivated, and how do you get them to recover from those mistakes? What do you do?
So I think it's very personal, but at the same time, like you say, as a leader, you have influence. I always use the phrases next one, because the next action is always the most important action, you know. So whether it's to myself, positive self-talk, or to others, next one. Because at the end of the day, that action's gone. There's nothing you can do about it. It's gone. Whether they scored, whether you made a mistake, it's gone. What follows is the most important. And, you know, I think we practice this a lot in training, for example, where we have loads of transitional games. You lose the ball, and it's so important for the other team to recover the ball as quick as possible. If everyone is too worried about the mistake that someone made, we can't get that ball as quick as possible and start building another attack. So I think it's important that, you know, not just myself, but everyone has this mentality, and you vocalize it as well. Next one. You made a mistake. We're not, you know, we're all human. We all make mistakes. You know, we're not perfect. As much as we want to, you know, tell ourselves, well, we have to do this and we have to do that, the most important is the next action. And as long as you recover from that, no one usually remembers that. So that's how I see it.
Before football was the main focus, what careers did you want to pursue at a younger age?
I love music. So I did my GCSEs of music. I wanted to be a producer, but I don't know if I could do that, to be honest. But definitely music. Yeah, definitely love like the creativity of it, making it. So in my spare time, I might make some beats on Logic or something like that. So yeah, definitely music.
Who is your favourite defensive partnership with and why?
I think Joachim Andersen, just because we played together for 3 years, but from the beginning, it was like this connection between us. Like I knew what he was good at, he knew what I was good at, and we just played off each other. It helps that we're good friends as well. But yeah, definitely Joachim Andersen. He's an unbelievable player, unbelievable person. But we just had this connection. Some connections you have to like really develop over time and speak about it, and you know, really hone in on the skills. But with him, it was just instant. From day one, we just knew how to play together. So yeah, him.
And you ended up playing against him in the Euros in the second game, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there a piece of advice you think you'd want to give to your younger self?
That's a great question.
Still very young. Yeah. Well, from my perspective.
That's a great question. Just relax, I guess. Sometimes I've gotten maybe too stressed over like certain outcomes, and you can't necessarily control those outcomes from being stressed or overthinking things too much. So just relax, keep doing what you're doing, focus on the process, enjoy what you're doing, and that will come naturally. But yeah, good question.
As a footballer, how important do you think that self-belief or self-confidence is? Do you think that there's a line that separates the self-belief and division or something?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Do you know what? In football, I think you have to be a little bit delusional. Do you know what I mean? Self-belief, yes, but at the same time, you're borderline delusional, because to be able to make it in football, it's such a small minority of footballers, by the way, that make it. I know it's like 1% of players go professional. You almost have to have a delusional sense of self-belief to make it to where you want to make it to. Because if you don't have that, honestly, I've seen some unbelievable players, but because they lack that self-belief in themselves, they question themselves, they just end up not making it. They end up second-guessing themselves on the pitch, and, even though their ability is clear to see. So definitely borderline delusional. But in life as well, kind of similar, that sense of belonging that we spoke about, and truly believing in yourself and knowing that whatever you're doing, you're meant to do. So yeah, I think they both, marry each other quite well.
So the imposter syndrome you mentioned, Mark, I guess is the opposite, isn't it, of delusional, where you're doubting that you're as good as you really are. On the other hand, if you're too far ahead of yourself, then it's not going to happen either. So you've got to get it right. But certainly, I don't know, I automatically think of, I'm not saying Jude's delusional, but he's a good example of someone with Jude Bellingham with massive self-confidence.
Massive, yeah.
But it's backed up by what he produces on the pitch. But would he be able to do that without the belief? I don't think so.
If you can't sing, and everyone's telling you can't sing, and you kind of know you can't sing, then don't tell yourself that you can't sing. Do you know what I mean?
That's delusion.
Do you know what I mean? That's too far, right? Too far. Do you know what I mean? But it's good to have a little bit of self-belief. Do you know what I mean? It's good to have more, I should say, than a lot less.
Can you sing?
I'm okay.
You're okay. Yeah.
Is there someone or something that you do that helps you deal with the pressure of being a leader?
Good question. I wouldn't say anything in particular, but I do like my alone time. Just definitely time alone to do what I want to do, whether that's watch a movie, a series, make some music. Yeah, I think everyone definitely needs like a hobby for themselves, just to help them deal with whatever pressures. A lot of footballers play golf, go play golf. You know, anything for yourself that you like to do. I think it's so important that you value that and you spend a lot of time doing that, because it definitely helps with whatever pressures you have going on elsewhere.
How do you keep motivation up on the pitch if you're losing?
Good question. I'd say 1, because you want to win, and 2, because football is extremely unpredictable. You generally don't know what's going to happen at any time, and you owe it to the fans as well. You owe it to yourselves. You know, you work hard all week, preparing for a game. Fans come in, you know, paying their hard-earned money to come and watch you. For example, if you're down 2-3-0 with 10 minutes to go, it's still important to push because you never know what's going to happen, and it's important to give back as well. So, you know, so many factors that you can give to yourself, to the team, you know, to push them to, you know, keep going.
Yeah, a good example was the last 16 game of the Euros against Slovakia, where all hope appeared to be evaporating. 5 or 6 minutes into added on time, Carl Walker throw in, and you appeared and headed it on.
Yeah, and then Jude scored.
Jude scores an overhead kick,
but honestly, you could talk to any of those players. Everyone thought that we was going home at that moment. Like, the game's going on, and there's thoughts in your head like, this can't be happening. Do you know what I mean? You could already see the headlines, and so we're not oblivious to things like that. But the most important was just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, Gareth was under enormous pressure at that point, obviously, and Emily, you know, who's in my team, who organises the logistics for England, she actually missed Jude's overhead kick goal because she was. I was saying this to Ebbs and Jude the next morning at training. She missed the goal because she was ordering the taxis to pick us up at Birmingham Airport the next day. And they're saying, like, you're joking. I said, well, no, because someone's got to organise the taxis. And she's got to the point where she's thinking, right, well, I'm on it now, because we would have been literally back on the plane, back to the hotel 1:30 in the morning. We'd have been to the airport by 10, and instead we stayed for, I guess, 2 or 3 more weeks. Got to the final.
Toughest opponent and why?
Gabriel Jesus, when he first signed for Arsenal, first 45 minutes. You can watch the highlights. Watch the first 45 minutes, or when he first signed for Arsenal, I think they signed Zinchenko. I think Saliba announced himself to the world, basically. He was R9 for the first. No, I'm not even exaggerating. I've never seen anyone play like that, ever. Not making everyone, going past people, flicking the ball, strong, quick. 1,000,000% Gabriel Jesus. For that first 45 minutes, I've never seen anyone play like that.
So was that the game at the beginning of the season when he first came?
Yeah, that was the first game of the season.
Yeah,
I don't know, second season or something like that. But when he first signed for Arsenal, he was untouchable.
He was pretty good last season as well against us.
Yeah.
So,
he was.
You said that when you were younger, you mainly focused on education. Do you find football as a bit of an escape when you would play?
Yeah, it was just fun for me, to be honest. Get out with your friends, doing what you love, I guess. I wouldn't necessarily was an escape. I mean, yeah, I think you can see it like that. Something to do other than my schoolwork. But yeah, it was just a bit of fun with friends, something that you enjoy.
What are your plans for the future? What more do you want to achieve?
That's a good question. To be honest, I want to play till I'm 40.
Like Maldini sort of thing.
Yeah, I genuinely want to play at the highest level till I'm 40. So that's definitely a goal of mine or a dream. that's going to take a lot of dedication, but that's definitely something I want to do for sure.
So you have that future aspiration to play till 40. So when you have these aspirations, how do you realize it? What actions do you take in between to make sure that happens?
Absolutely everything. So from the time I go to bed, from what I eat, after games, am I getting in the cryo chamber? You know, even though I don't want to, but if I want to do that, I have to. If I'm getting massages, if I'm stretching, so you know where you want to get to. But then, like you say, it's planning out those steps and then actually doing them. Doing them is always the hardest part because, like you say, I don't always want to do it. But yeah, you kind of have to if I want to get to where I want to.
People might not know about the cryo chamber.
Yeah, minus, what, 180?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
190?
I don't know if it's minus 140, 100, doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah,
It's very,
just
very
minus
cold.
something, yeah.
And you're in there for what, 3 minutes or something?
I go in there for 5 minutes and then come out and then go in again with Ebbs.
You mentioned earlier about this season when the sort of turning point was that you had so many leaders within the team that helped throughout that. As a thing that we see as a culture at youth level of football, that a lot of them look at the captain and think that's the captain, they're our captain, they're just going to do it to tell us everything to do. How did you create that culture of leadership through the team this year to help?
I think it starts with the manager for sure. If I'm not mistaken, he might be the only one in the team that has actually won something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when he talks, you listen. Do you know what I mean? So he's come from a culture where winning was an objective and winning is what they got. So it definitely starts with him. And when he's talking about certain things that we have to do and focusing on certain details, we're all paying attention. But then at the end of the day, it comes down to us and responsibility. And we all have conversations with one another every single day. Like, what do we really want to achieve this season? Not necessarily a trophy, but how far do we want to go? Do we want to push each other? Do we want to, climb up the table? Do you know what I mean? So you have these conversations, and it's important that you hold each other accountable. First and foremost yourself, as long as you're doing it, then you can pull someone up on it if they're not doing it and doing it in the right way. But yeah, I think I think that's really valuable, trying to take responsibility. And I think most of us did that, which was very helpful.
There is a little bit of time now. I know some of you are itching, if Mark's okay with it, to do some pictures and stuff, and some things like that. But you can just have one more round of applause for yourselves as well, because